So the just so you know, the audience here is, individuals who've been going through our courses. So
Okay.
there are people who have been called, much like you have been in your own work, although not necessarily in the arena of food. However,
hmm
we do have some farmers and some permaculturists among us. Some are graduates of the local food academy, but they're all learning to be what we call evolutionary catalysts. So
hmm
your story is of interest to
Okay.
all of us
I
to
should
see.
I should send you my PDF, my ordinary extraordinary art. It kind of tells my whole story.
Yeah, well, we'd like to hear it from the horse's mouth, of
Well, and that
course.
too, for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, because we're looking for lessons that we can learn from you about actually living one's calling, one's mission in
hmm
life.
hmm
Especially in times of global crisis like this. So
Yeah, especially in these times. My God, man.
yeah,
I
yeah. So I'll just kick this off and say, welcome, Greg Peterson, the urban farmer.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for,
having me.
yeah,
Absolutely.
we're glad to be with you today. And so I'd like to start with you telling us about what's been going on for you and the urban farm just in the last few weeks, sort of what's been the news for you in the midst of this pandemic. And
Yeah.
then we'll go back and explore the story of how you got here.
All right. I can do that. Um, well, I've said and I've been doing this for decades. I started in the 70s, and I've said for years that my business is good when things are good. My business screams when things are down. And I saw that in the 2008, 2009, 2010 downturn.
Mm-hmm.
My business grew pretty greatly. And when I say my business, there is a financial piece to my business, but really what I'm after is about to connecting to people and getting them to get how important our food system is. So we've seen a dramatic upturn in people interested in learning how to grow their own food. In 4 weeks, we've had over 12,000 new subscribers to our email list, which is unprecedented. That basically added 30% to our email list, which unprecedented. So, and not surprising. So, and we're getting every night in class, we do a gardening or gardening related class every evening at 5 p.m. Pacific, and we're getting
7 days a
between
week?
5 days a week.
5 days a week?
Yeah,
Okay.
when we started this 3 weeks ago, we were doing 7 days a week, but decided we needed to take a break from teaching that much. Plus, in the middle of it, we had our Edible Backyard Summit.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So the Edible Backyard Summit is a bonus piece on top of our Growing Food the Basics course that Kari Spencer and I recorded about 5 or 6 years ago. So we've been teaching online classes since 2014,
Mm-hmm.
and Growing Food the Basics is one of them. And the whole notion of the summit and how the summits work, that seems to be a thing now. So we decided to package our Growing Food the Basics into a summit called the Edible Backyard Summit, and we had extra speakers come in and give extra data, and it worked out pretty well. In literally 10 days after this whole pandemic thing started.
Yeah.
The
So
panic
how many
started.
people signed up for the summit?
Somewhere around 5,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, somewhere around 5,000. And
That's very good. Any
yeah,
idea of the geographic distribution?
all over the world.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
80% in the US, but we've got South America. And Janice keeps track every night in class where people are dialing in from, but Australia, Europe, and then people can listen to it for, after the fact. And so we figure we're getting between 100 and 200 people live, and 5 to 10 times that in the replays.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And are you hearing comments from people about why they're signing up, and what their feeling about food in the midst of this crisis?
Well, I think there's finally somewhat of a realization that our food system is broken. And I say that hesitantly because the food system actually isn't all that broken. It's the food that's broken.
It's the food that's broken. Yeah.
And our local systems that are broken to deliver local healthy food. So, I'm seeing that people are getting woke to that. Is that a term they use?
Yeah.
Is woke? Yeah. People are awakening to the need to figure out where their food comes from. There was a study done maybe 15 years ago that showed there's about a 3-day supply of food in any urban area. I say there's about a 3-hour supply. Because, and we've seen that in the last 2 weeks, because the moment there's a whisper of something big going down, and I used to say something big, not the end of the world big, but like a power outage in San Diego for 3 days in 2014 that our buddy Bill, or Scott Murray and his family lived through. And so we have an absolutely beautiful system set up to deliver unhealthy food to the masses. And, it's eloquent how it works. It's just the food viability of it is broken.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, you've been basically an urban farmer for 40 years or so now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah. I want to hear the story of how you got into this. Yeah.
I wish I knew. In the 8th grade. So I was born in 1961. So the 8th grade puts me about 1974 or 75. I wrote a paper on how we were overfishing the oceans. I have no idea. Before that, when I was 9, I bought a fish aquarium. So I actually got a job as a paper boy so I could raise money so I could get a fish aquarium because I was interested in raising fish to eat. I was at 9, wow. 10, 11. I was interested in aquaculture, fish farming. Go figure. I have no idea. So, I wrote a paper on how we were overfishing the oceans in 1974-ish and started my first business almost on accident when I was 15. I used to hang out at one of the local fish stores, and Bill, the guy that worked at the fish store, used to clean fish ponds for people. And one Saturday I was hanging out there and he said, "Greg, do you want to help me clean a fish pond tomorrow?" It's like, hold on, I'm 15 years old. You want me to muck out a fish pond? Let's go. I was in. And when we got done, he says, "I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not interested." And so he turned over his pumps. He had a couple of pumps and a couple of wire brushes, and he gave me 3 or 4 people that he used to clean their fish ponds and said, "Here, you go do it." So at 15, my mom used to take me to, in her blue Pinto, used to take me to clients' houses to clean their fish ponds. And quickly after that, by the time I was 16 or 17, I was actually converting swimming pools into aquaculture ponds for people. And building small-scale aquaculture systems. So I was
were you gardening by that time?
Oh yeah. I planted my first garden in Phoenix when we moved into the Weldon house in 1974, 75, right about that same time. We had a half acre, and my mom, when we moved into the house, she said, see the right half of the backyard, Greg? That's your garden. Go start digging. So I planted my first gardens in 74, 75, 76 timeframe, planted my first fruit trees. And then promptly in 1981, I got kicked out of the house. So I was out on my own, and I was still doing aquaculture work. I got hired by a local company who was a local development company developing apartment complexes. And Mike was the owner of it, and he was very interested in raising fish in aquaculture ponds. So he had hired a researcher out of Colorado, and since the researcher couldn't be here, he hired me to basically maintain the aquaculture ponds that were being built. So by 1979, I was learning how to build small-scale aquaculture ponds in the desert, and in '81, I was in the Arizona Aquaculture Association.
Wow.
And we used to travel around the state looking for fish farms. And we found one down in southern Arizona. This is Gila Bend, the desert, dry place, but there was a fish farm down there because there's lots of water, interestingly enough. And they were harvesting the fish, cleaning the fish. And I don't know if you've ever cleaned a fish, but when you clean a fish, you get about 30% meat and about 70% everything that's left over, right? So you get this nice little piece of meat plus all of this stuff. And they were feeding, basically throwing it away, just leaving it out in the desert behind their farm, and the wildlife was coming and eating it. First of all, that's a tragedy.
Yes.
That they were throwing it away. Secondly, it significantly impacted the wildlife because all of a sudden, if they have that kind of food source, you see, the population skyrocket, which I'm sure they did. And that really kicked in for me oh my God, why can't we, and if I'd have been thinking about it, I'd have dug it out, but on a piece of 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, in 1981, I designed a fish farm where everything got used in the system. You're going to get real familiar with me doing this here in the next little while. Because it didn't make sense that they were throwing away stuff that could be used for something. So I designed on paper how we could do, and back then, I don't even think we called it sustainable, but how could we do a system where everything in the system got used for something of value? It was in 1981. And then I went on with life. I was, from apartment to apartment until I finally got to a place in 1989 where where I could buy a house. I was 29 years old, and I owned a computer business at that time. And it's like, oh, yeah, let's buy a house. I'm going to buy it with flood irrigation. That's something that we get here in Phoenix that, 26 times a year, I get 6 inches of water in my yard. It's a water right that comes with the property. So in '89, I bought the urban farm where I live now. I've been here 31 years. And I know, right? It's over half my life. It's like, wow. And fast forward to 1991, so '89 to '91, a couple of years. And I'm gardening. The reason I bought this place is to plant fruit trees and to garden and, do all that kind of stuff. And 4 different life-altering things happened for me in 1991. The first thing that happened was I did a course through Landmark Education. And, they have the forum and the advanced course. And I did the advanced course. And the advanced course, what they have you do is they have you create a vision for your life. And I created myself to be, in 1991, the person on the planet responsible for transforming our global food system. Again, I have no idea where this is coming from. This is just what I'm supposed to be doing. And sometimes it's awesome, and sometimes it's a curse.
Yes.
The second thing that happened for me in 1991 is I read a book called Ishmael by Daniel Quinn.
Yes.
By the way, you look a lot like Daniel.
Oh.
I got to meet him, and he's written many books. And basically, Ishmael is a conversation between a gorilla and a man. The gorilla is the teacher, talking about how over the last 10,000 years, our agricultural system has come to dominate the planet, and he proposes different ways of thinking about it. So much of what I do is what I call Quinian philosophy. I speak and share Quinian philosophy. So Ishmael by Daniel Quinn, you'll either love the book and it'll change your life forever, or you'll hate it and put it down. Because it's a powerful book. And then he's got many more books after that. Third thing that happened for me in 1991 is I discovered permaculture. Mm-hmm. Permaculture I like to call the art and science of working with nature. How do we plug in and work in the flow of nature rather than against it? We human beings, we think we know how to do it better than nature. And my late great friend Toby Hemingway always used to say, nature bats last. Nature always bats last. Nature's going to figure it out better than we are always. So why don't we look to nature to see how we can figure it out? So the culmination for me of 1991, and 1991 for me was a head spinning year, as you can tell. The culmination was a friend of mine went on a sailboat trip to the South Pacific. I can't even remember where it was at. And they anchored in an island looking for a grocery store. And the people on the island said, go pick your own. I was like, holy shit. This is like a culmination of permaculture, of Ishmael, of my big stand on the planet, all kind of like wrapped up into a package that, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. From 1984 to 2004, I was actually in technology. I ran the Apple Authorized Training Center here in Phoenix. I had a software company that I ran for 20 years. But I never lost track of gardening, planting fruit trees, so on and so on. And in 1999, I started a fruit tree education program. And I think this is part of the reason you want me here, is to share about the systems that I've put in place that are replicable.
Yeah.
Because that's what I've always been interested in, this.
Yes.
We as human beings, and I have looked for 30 plus years at this, and I have yet to find a regenerative system that humans put in place. Every single system that humans put in place is degenerative, which means it breaks down over time. It breaks down and dies. It goes away. And I don't want to lose track. I don't want to miss the magnitude of what I just said.
Yeah.
Every single human system that we have ever put in place eventually breaks down and goes away. Which means all of this is going to break down and go away. Whether we're talking, the desk I'm sitting at, the cars in the driveway, the building that we're at. How many times have you sat back and thought, this house that I'm living in, I don't know how long you've lived in your house. I've lived in my house for 38 years. Well, for 31 years. It was built in 1948. And I look at it and it's made out of block. It's a block constructed house. So it's going to be here a while longer. But in the whole scope of geologic time, 80 years is a sneeze.
That's right.
It's like, dust. What happened? What happens to all this stuff eventually? That goes through my head just about every day.
Yeah.
And when I get in big crowds of people, not so much anymore, but when I get in big crowds of people, I stand back and I wonder, what is going to happen to all these people when it happens? What's going to happen to the millions and billions of people that are here? And so back to degenerative, every single human system, I don't want to lose, I'm going to say this again, I don't want to lose the magnitude of what I just said. And that's every single system that humans build. It breaks down and goes away eventually, which means our system is defunct.
Yeah.
It's a degenerative flat system, beginning, middle, end. Everything ends. That's the reason I like permaculture so much, because permaculture, and I call permaculture with a small p, not a big P. Mm-hmm. I spell it with a small, I've spelled it because I had a conversation with a friend of mine 25 years ago. Permaculture isn't a thing. It's just a thing to look at a thing. And that thing that we look at is Mother Nature.
Yes.
So every single natural system that's been put in place is regenerative. It does this. It regenerates itself. So the systems that I've been putting in place here in Phoenix for the past 30 years, 20 or 30, maybe even longer than that, look at natural systems and how can they self-replicate. Now, they're not perfect. You know, my fruit tree system, that's where this conversation started. My fruit tree system, which I started in 1999, still requires me to bring fruit trees in from California and from Yuma and from San Diego and bring them in place. But it is replicable. If somebody was out there, we have the system in place that somebody could come to me and say, you know what, I want to do a fruit tree system, fruit tree program in my place, you know, wherever that is, in Colorado, Minnesota, wherever it is. I have the systems that I have put in place that we do a pop-up nursery. So every fall, and I've been doing it for 20 years now, every fall we do a fruit tree education program that starts in September. We give free classes on how to grow fruit trees. And this came out of me discovering about 20 years ago that you can go into most nurseries in every single flippin' big box store, and they will sell you a fruit tree that will never make fruit.
Right.
And they know it. They often will know it. So you're going to buy a peach tree. I was at a Walmart, oh my God, about 4 years ago. Do you realize that there are at least, I don't know, 500 different varieties of peaches?
Yeah.
And in Phoenix, there's about a dozen different varieties that will thrive and produce fruit. So I was at this Walmart, and there was a peach tree there. And the tag on it said peach. It's like, seriously? I need to know a variety. I need to know the rootstock. So we put together this fruit tree education program where we educate people on how to successfully grow trees. We've actually gotten to a place where we guarantee our trees.
Wow.
If you take it home and plant it and it doesn't grow, we help with that. Because I'm so confident that, first of all, the stuff we're bringing in will thrive. It'll produce lots of fruit. And if you do what I tell you to through my education, the tree will thrive. So that was 1999. By 2001, I started to get my rhythm. At the same time, at 2001, I was back at school at Arizona State University getting my bachelor's degree. That's a whole story in itself. Still doing my computer stuff. So I was in school part-time, I was doing my computer stuff part-time, and I was experimenting with how do I educate people about fruit trees and get them fired up about fruit trees. So we've done the fruit tree program now for 20 years. We sell about 5,000 trees a year.
Wow.
So it's actually what pays the bills for me.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a nice system set up where every fall we give classes, people pre-order their trees, the trees come in here in the desert in January, and people come in and pick up the trees while they're dormant. They take them home while they're dormant, they put them in the ground and they break dormancy. So we provide soil, fertilizers, education, the trees, supplements, everything that they need in order to have their fruit trees thrive. So that's that particular system that somebody could start someplace else, and I have the data to be able to share it with them. Hint, hint.
Yes.
So the 1 years have been important years for me. I was born in 61. I have no idea what I was doing in 71 except a paper route. In 81, I designed this really regenerative fish farm on paper. In 1991, all that happened. In 2001, I was back at Arizona State University getting my bachelor's degree. A little backstory on why?
Why?
Oh, this is good. So in 1981, I was at Arizona because my dad wanted me to be. I was at Arizona State University getting my degree. I absolutely hated it with a passion. I hated school. I hated it. So from 79 to 81, I was at a local community college. I went to Northern Arizona University for a semester and didn't like that. I came back and I went to ASU for a semester and I got a 0.5 grade average. 2 D's and an F. And my dad, now I was 20 years old at that point. My dad finally said, okay, I get it. You're not interested in school. You need to go out. Well, at that point, I was running a fish pond business. And in 1981, I was actually running another business. I used to run 11 gift wrap centers in the malls at Christmas time.
Wow.
We used to take Christmas gifts and put them in cans and tin cans and seal it up and put a nice label around it. And then somebody would have to use a can opener to open it. I did that for 6 or 7 years. And I just was bored with school. So in 1981, I flunked out of Arizona State University, and I got kicked out of the house because I needed to, go get real with life at 20 years old, which was the best thing that ever happened to me. And fast forward to 1997. I'm at Phoenix College, one of our local community colleges. I'm at Phoenix College, and I start taking writing classes because it's time to write my first book.
Mm-hmm.
Time to write a book. So I needed to go to learn how to write. And I found this really amazing professor, Paul Morrison, and I have reported back to him many times and thanked him profusely. And so I took one class a semester from him on how to write poetry and creative writing and nonfiction and fiction, all that stuff. And in 1999, my mom comes back and I'm really loving it at that point. That's the key. I'm really loving it. And my mom comes to me in late 1998 and says, "Greg, why don't you go back to school and get your degree?" It's like, right, whatever. And I walk away and I go have a conversation with Paul Morris. He says, "Greg, you could get a degree in something you were interested in." Like,
what a concept, right?
It was like, hold on, that never occurred to me. I was always supposed to get a business degree.
Right.
So interestingly enough, when I got back to Arizona State University to transfer credits in, I had 127 credit hours, which, by the way, is the amount of hours that you need to graduate, because I never stopped taking classes.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I was interested in learning something, I would go to Phoenix College and I would take a class on creative writing, on how to run a small business, on solar panels, this was a really good one. I took 2 classes on wastewater management, and I was just curious. So the reason I went back to college in 1999 is because I was really curious about learning, and they finally had something to offer me. And the cool thing is that when I got back to Arizona State University, all of my required classes were completed, except 2. So I could go back and take whatever the hell I wanted.
Yeah.
Which I did for a bachelor's and a master's degree. So I really went back for, self-fulfillment.
So what were your degrees in?
My bachelor's degree is a bachelor's of interdisciplinary studies, which basically means I get to take this and this and this and put them all together. Sociology, I'm fascinated with sociology. Plant biology and urban planning are the 3 that I put together. And if you think about it, they make perfect sense for what I do.
Yeah.
And then my master's degree is also an interdisciplinary studies master's degree called urban and environmental planning. I got basically an environmental planning degree.
Mm-hmm.
So
in a region where environmental planning is abysmal.
That's okay. I wasn't doing it for that. I was doing it to learn and have fun. And one of the things that I so loved about college was in the whole scope, in the whole platform, in the whole landscape of what I do, I'm kind of at the top of the conversation. When I went back to school, getting a master's degree, I was at the bottom, and I had all these people that were pulling me up, which was really cool. I'm 58 years old, 59 years old. One of these days I want to go back and get a PhD, not to get a PhD, but for the thinking part of it.
Yeah.
I so loved the platform that is there that pulled me up into a greater thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So in 2001, I was at Arizona State University. I had a class for one of my required classes for my degree. And I had to write a mission and vision for my life. And out of the mission and vision came the urban farm.
I
This is
see.
where I live.
Okay.
This
So
is
that was
this,
the genesis of Urban Farm.
this is in 2001. It was the genesis of the urban farm, and really, the urban farm, for those that you don't know, and I'll send over a mini book, about 1,500 words or so. Maybe it's 4,000 words. I don't know. On my ordinary, extraordinary yard. It kind of explains what the urban farm is in depth, but the urban farm is my house. It's 1/3 of an acre, so that's 80 feet wide and 160 feet deep. It's primarily edible, or it supports edible. We have flood water that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And the reason I bought this property, the number one reason I bought this property, was because of the flood water, because it can flood water fruit trees.
Yeah.
So there are currently about 80 fruit trees on the property, on 1/3 of an acre. There are, I don't know, 3 or 4 dozen things that come back year after year after year that I planted. So I've got parsley and nasturtiums and lettuce and celery and kale, mint and oregano and basil that just reseed themselves year after year after year, just like they do in nature.
Yeah.
Just like they do in nature. Basically, I've built a food forest here. In fact, a funny thing happened the other day. I parked the car on the street, across the street, and as I was getting out of the car, there was a head of lettuce growing in the neighbor's lawn.
Very good.
Yeah.
You are contagious.
There you go. I'll take it. I will take it. So, I've been here for, like I said, I've been here for 31 years, and I've practiced permaculture for 29 years, and I've put those permaculture principles in place. And my goal really is to inspire people to do this for themselves because of our broken food production system.
So you've been serving the Phoenix area, an area that's arguably one of the more difficult places to do something like this. Yes.
Called in a book about 15 years ago, called the most unsustainable city on the planet.
Yes.
4.8 million people right in the middle of the desert, pulling Colorado River water over mountains to make sure that we have enough water, that has no consciousness about building homes. They are building, there's a developer, one of the local developers came out recently and said they were going to build 50,000 new homes. And, those of us that really know about the water here, it's just like, really?
Yeah.
And they're supposed to have a 100-year supply of water proven before they start building. But here's the problem with that. They're not going to be around in 100 years to even know. And yeah. We have a water problem here that people they have their heads so far stuck in the sand that anyways.
So you've built a highly localized business.
Yes. Well, there's 2 sides to the business. There is the highly localized, which is the fruit tree education program, which is in Urban Farm Nursery. There's the hyper localized in-person education, which is at a company that Kari Spencer and I started about 5 years ago called Grow PHX. You can find it at growphx.com. And that company really serves a purpose for me. And that is that inside of Grow PHX, we have a networking group. So, and this happens now daily. Somebody calls me, emails me, texts me and says, Greg, I need an irrigation system in my backyard. 2 years ago, I didn't have anybody. I put together, inside of Grow PHX, we put together a networking group, just like one of those business networking groups, BNI or Sales Pros or whatever. So we put one together for our community. And I have an irrigation guy, and I have a chicken coop guy, and I have a dog trainer, and we have a guy that puts in fish ponds, and so on and so on and so on. So inside of Grow PHX, we have a networking group, so that when somebody calls me and says, Greg, I can say, oh, I got somebody that can help you design your edible landscape. Call Kristen. Or I have somebody yesterday, I had two of these things happen yesterday. Somebody needed bee help, I sent them to Cricket. Somebody needed irrigation help, I sent them to Chris. Also inside of Grow PHX is our monthly happy hour. Not so much happening right now, but we get together publicly at a local restaurant for a happy hour, so that people can, congregate and talk to other urban farmers. We have a speakers bureau inside of Grow PHX. So when somebody calls me and says, hey, Greg, my Rotary Club needs somebody to talk, I have some place to plug them in, because there's only so much of me. And then we also bought a mesquite bean hammer mill. They're about $15,000. 2 years ago, we bought one. So mesquite beans grow wild here in the desert. And so in May and June, we teach people how to harvest their own mesquite beans, how to dry them, and then they bring the mesquite beans to us and we mill them into flour. And then we have our permaculture design course education curriculum inside of Grow PHX. We do a yearly PDC, permaculture design course, and we do monthly until all this started. We did monthly day-long permaculture education classes, like on water harvesting or composting, or there's other ones. So that's a day-long class. And then once a month to twice a month, we do tours, urban farm tours, and there are hundreds of urban farms in Phoenix. So, we just plug into one of them and take a tour to their house. The tours are different. They're educational tours where people can actually dive in. It's not just a walkthrough. There's somebody that leads the tour, talks about what happens in the space, connects it back to permaculture. And then on one Saturday a month, we were doing what we call a 3-pack or a 4-pack, where we have one of the local churches that I rent a classroom from, and we do an 8:30, a 10:30, a 12:30, and a 3:30 class on different topics, keeping bees or starting your garden or mushrooms or something like that. So that's Grow PHX, and that's our local impact group. Grow PHX, again, is designed to be replicated.
Yes.
We've already started talking with a group down in Tucson about replicating these systems down there. So there's the Urban Farm Fruit Tree Program, there's Grow PHX, and then there's Urban Farm U. And Urban Farm U is the reason I can't be there live tonight, because I'm giving a class, a virtual tour, actually, of the urban farm. Is while you're in class tonight, I'm giving a class on a virtual tour. So if you go to iwanttogarden.com and sign up, you'll get an email with a replay of tonight's class, so you can actually watch that class. And
those are free?
Yep, it's free. Wow. Yeah, we decided when this whole thing went down at the toward the middle of March. Yeah. Janice and I sat down and said, what can we do? And we already have this infrastructure in place to deliver online classes. So like I said earlier, we decided to offer daily free classes, and have since gone to Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. free classes. And last night it was on humanure. Tomorrow night it's on aquaponics. So we're just pulling stuff from the past. So we have a lot of past history classes. I've been giving classes since 2014, and we have hundreds of classes that we've recorded over the past 6 years.
And you do a podcast as well.
And I do a podcast, Urban Farm Podcast. The challenge for me, and thank God for the fruit trees, but the challenge for me is the podcast cost me $158 per episode. God knows what these free classes are costing me. We are asking for donations, and we get a few donations, but nothing to write home about. We do have a patron program that we started about 4 months ago for the podcast, but especially in these times, people are a little bit tighter on money. So remember I said that there's two parts to my entrepreneurship. There's the part that I have to pay the bills with. And then there's the part that I have to make the social impact with. My mom has often accused me that the social impact part is more important to me. Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So how many people in the Phoenix area would you guess have been your customers over the years?
Tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands.
Yeah, we sell 5,000 fruit trees a year. We offer 100 and under the new model, we're going to be offering 200 tours and classes and permaculture course spaces in a year. When I started in 2001, when I created the Urban Farm at Arizona State University on paper, because I already lived here, I already had the place. I just had to kind of boil it down into, all right, this is what I call it. It's an environmental showcase home that I show off to people.
Mm.
And when I started doing classes, tours here at the Urban Farm, and classes for that matter, in 2001, there were Saturdays. I would do it the first Saturday of every month, about 8 months a year. So in the dead of winter and the dead of summer, I would skip it. But we were doing tours. And there were Saturdays when I would take this pretty little tent that I got on a grant, sit it up front. It says the Urban Farm on it. And nobody would show up in 2001, 2002, 2003. I would take the tent back down, put it away, do it again the next month. If you ask my mom, one of my my biggest assets is that I don't give up. I'm persistent. I just don't quit, especially when it comes to this stuff. Now when we do tours of the Urban Farm, and this is pre-COVID, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens post-COVID. But now when we do a tour at the Urban Farm, I have to schedule 3 or 4 tours on a Friday and a Saturday.
Uh-huh.
And we'll get on a weekend anywhere from 150 to 250 people that show up for my tours.
Wow.
I've had as many as 90 people on a tour. That's like driving the Titanic through my yard. I can easily do 45 to 50. And I do them for free. So in 2001, I was running a kitchen garden at one of my friend's restaurants, and she had a space for me to do gardening classes. So in 2001, I designed a 3-part gardening class, learn how to garden in the Arizona desert. And I spent hours and hours designing this curriculum, marketing it. I had 3 people sign up. And I said, that's bullshit. I got to find a different way, because I don't want to touch 3 people. I want to touch 3 million people.
Yeah.
By the way, our podcast just went over 2 million listens. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. And I discovered pretty quickly after that if I gave this stuff away for free and put a donation jar out,
yeah,
in person, this doesn't so much work online, unfortunately.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah. But in person, I mean, it's nothing for me to have $1,000 to $2,000 in the donation jar at the end of a tour weekend.
Oh, wow. Very good. Very
Easy.
good. And recently you just did your first virtual tour.
Well, the virtual tour I'm doing tonight. I'm doing the virtual tour of the Urban Farm tonight as our free class. We did our first virtual summit 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And had really good response to that. And then I've been, like I said, I've been doing online classes for 6 years now. I'll tell you what, doing an online class is so different. It is something that you have to learn about.
Mm-hmm.
It is so different than doing a in-person class, because you have that interaction. You know, when you're doing an online class, you're just speaking out into white noise. So it's, you know, it has to, and as you can tell, I developed my ability to be able to keep talking. I have, for every class that I do and for every tour that I do, usually, so my tour tonight, basically what I'm going to do is it's all photographs. So I've got photographs of the urban farm. I'll get to a photograph, and everything that happens here at the urban farm happens for a reason. When I was really young, my uncle in Portland, God, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Okay, well, there you go. That's the Lyme kicking in on my brain. I have Lyme disease, and it really has fuzzied my memory. We were out somewhere and hunting. He was a great big hunter. I was never a hunter. I went out along for the ride. And we were having a conversation, and this conversation lives with me today. And I can't remember exactly what we were talking about, but the upshot was that he said, Greg, everything that I do, there's a reason. And I took that here, 45 years later, I took that and everything, and that's logical when you look at nature. Something happens in nature for a reason. So everything that happens here at the urban farm, it happens for a reason. So when people come for a tour here at the urban farm, literally I could talk for days.
Yeah, sure.
I tell people all the time, you need to come to 2 or 3 or 4 tours because there's so much happening here, and every tour is different. So I'll put up a photograph of my front porch, and in the front bed, I have this regenerative gardening system. I don't ever replant the front bed at the garden at the urban farm. The front garden replants itself every year, and there's garlic and onions and nasturtiums and cowpeas and multiple other things that grow in that bed. They reseed themselves. When they die, all of that mulch goes in to the bed to make the soil for next year, and the next stuff comes up, and it's phased in. It works. It works. It just works. So I can take a look at a picture of my front porch at the urban farm and talk for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Explaining what's going on there. So with my virtual tours, that's what I do. I just jump in and put up a picture and talk about the citrus hedge that runs across the front of my property. By the way, in front of your house in Phoenix, this is from a planning perspective, this is in most places, you can't put a fence up that's higher than 3 feet. So if you want privacy in your front yard, from a fence perspective, good luck with that. But you can grow something. So about 15 years ago, right up against the street, there's a berm, and then I put a ditch. We call them swales in permaculture. And in that swale, I planted 14 citrus trees. Now I have this beautiful citrus hedge that acts as a fence. It grows food. It keeps the space cooler. Any leaves that fall on the ground become mulch. By the way, this is a permaculture concept called stacking functions. It feeds me. I think I may have said that already. And I planted 14 navel orange trees. Why the hell would I plant 14 navel oranges? Because I love navel oranges.
Yeah.
People ask me what I do with all those navel oranges, and I said, I eat them and I share a few with my mom.
Very good. Yeah.
I just ate my last navel orange. I think it was April 2nd. I started eating them at the end of November. So I get December, January, February, and March. I get 4 months of eating citrus navel oranges off of my navel orange trees. That's heaven for me. I said to Heidi yesterday, because we're about 3 weeks out for the mulberries and about 6 weeks out for the peaches and apricots. It's like, I have nothing to eat right now, when it comes to fresh fruit. So,
Greg, I mean, you have built a system, a system of systems, I guess we could say.
Yeah.
So we've reached this
I haven't even told you about the best one yet, but go ahead.
Yeah. So we'll come back to that,
Yeah,
you
we
know,
will.
because I don't want to leave anything out here. But I'm looking at the time here, and I think what I would like to do, if I can get everything to work here, is I would like to share this part of our discussion with the group tonight, and then 2 weeks out in our next gathering, have you come on live and let them ask you questions.
Perfect.
Okay.
Completely works.
Yeah, great.
2 weeks on a Thursday?
Yeah.
All right.
Can we do it?
I'll look at my schedule, but I'll make it work.
Okay. All right. So what we're at this inflection point right now with the pandemic and the economic and social chaos that's resulting from all of that. And you've built something that's just it's poised in a position where, you know, people are waking up to the need for this, for their own personal need for this.
Let's hope they stay woke.
Well, I think that there will be other shocks that will help keep them awake.
Yeah, you think?
likely. So as you look ahead, you know, in the next say 5 years, what do you see happening for you in the urban farm?
Well, hoping that people stay woke or woken, teaching a lot more people how to grow their own food, you know, having them put systems in place in their region that support the local food movement. You know, taking one thing you can do is take a look at the systems that we've put in place here, and I'm more than happy to talk with people about it. See how you can replicate them there. Everything that I do, and I think this is one of the big nuggets. Everything that I do and everything that I've been doing for the past 30 years has been to put systems in place for when this happens.
Yeah.
When this happens, exactly what we're in the middle of happens. And those systems have to be regenerative. They have to be able to move on their own. I'm almost to the point inside of my team that if I were to disappear, the systems would continue. Mm-hmm. That is so important, putting regenerative structures in your business, especially if you have a business in the realm of nurturing our culture. That's so important. So, you know, more systems, more what ifs. I am a great fan of, oh my God, what if we did this? I don't care how big it is. I mean, shit, in 1991, I created myself to be the person on the planet responsible for transforming our global food system. Who says that? That's crazy. But why not?
Why not?
You know, why not?
Hurry up, Greg.
Right. Well, it's really about putting these systems in place.
Yes, exactly.
And so I got to tell you before we get done, I got to tell you about the one I think I am, and I'm proud of so much of what we have accomplished. And I'm proud of our team. There's Janice and Taylor and Ken and Raymond and Renee and Katie, all these people that have come around me to help build and nurture this stuff. Oh, and then there's Bill McDormand and Bell Starr and Kari Spencer. These are all people that get it and are helping move it forward. Yeah. So in 2011, I went to a week-long seed saving course in Tucson, Arizona, given by Bill McDormand and Bell Starr. And I wasn't, quite honestly, I wasn't really all that interested in the technical stuff about seed saving. I wanted to see the bigger impact picture. So I spent the money and I went to Tucson for a week. And in the scope of being in class for a week with Bill and Bell and all the people that he brought on, I came to discover that Phoenix still does not have a seed bank. Mm-hmm. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That is a huge problem. So, in my infamous, my gosh, what if we did this? I bought the biggest freezer non-commercial freezer you can buy, 25 cubic feet. And I placed an order for $2,000 worth of bulk seeds.
Mm.
And I stuck them in the freezer. So now all of a sudden, Phoenix had a seed bank of sorts. Problem is that it was in my office, and the distribution of it, if shit hit the fan, was a problem. So Bill Bell, Heidi, and I were on vacation together. We went down to Rocky Point at Thanksgiving 6 years ago, I think. And in a 15-minute conversation, Bill Bell and I created something that we call the Great American Seed Up. Mm. And basically what the Great American Seed Up is it's a 2-day long event. You can find out about it at greatamericanseedup.org. It is a 2-day event where we put 1,000 to 2,000 pounds, usually about 100 different varieties of open pollinated seeds in popcorn buckets in a 10,000 square foot room. And we have Ziploc bags. I'm looking around to see if I have any of the business cards. I don't. And we make a business card. You know, this is my business card, but we make a business card with all of the data on it about that seed. You know, what it is, how to propagate it, so on and so on. When people pay $7.50 for a ticket to get in the door, then they get a sheet of paper with all of the different varieties on it and a clipboard. By the way, I make clipboards out of old political signs. I collect old political signs. We buy the clamps. We buy these clamps,
yeah,
and we put that at the top, and those are our clipboards. The really good use for old political signs. They're that size, so people get their clipboard, and they bring their grocery bag, and they go to, and the seeds are all laid out in logical order around the room. Again, there's 100 different varieties. And next to the bucket of Armenian cucumber seeds is a sign that says Armenian cucumber seeds, $1.25 a scoop, and a scoop. Mm-hmm. And the scoops are designed, so this is basically a great big seed bazaar.
Yeah.
The scoops are designed to be between 5 and 10 times what you would get in a traditional $2 to $4 packet of seeds. Mm. So people go around the room, and I'll tell you what, having 400 people, we had over 800 people scoop seeds last year.
Wow.
Having that many people in a room scooping seeds, I'm feeling the energy right now. You can feel the energy in the room. It is absolutely flippin' amazing what happens. And literally for $50, you can buy enough seeds to last you a lifetime. Mm. Because at the same time, wow, we're giving classes. Remember I said that everything I do starts with education? We have recorded classes they get when they buy their ticket. On Saturday, we give hourly classes on different seed topics. So we're giving people education at the same time they're scooping seeds. And now guess what? This will be our 7th time we've done it.
Wow.
We figure that somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 people have scooped seeds over the last 6 years. They know that you keep them cool, dark, and dry. You put them in a jar. You stick them in the freezer in a sealed jar. When you pull it out of the freezer, you let the jar come to room temperature, and then you open it. Those seeds will last for decades. Mm. And at the same time, they're open pollinated seeds, which means they're not hybrids, so that you save the seeds from and replant them, you'll get the seeds back again.
Yeah.
This is regenerative.
Yes.
This puts 2,000 to 3,000 seed banks in people's freezers and saves our butt at times like this, because I don't know if you checked with seed companies. They're running as fast as they can and running out of seeds.
Running out of seeds. Oh.
I'm not passionate about any of this, by the way.
Well, I think this is a good place for us to stop, Greg, and um, you know, we'll we'll share this with the group.
Cool.
Hopefully tonight, you know, if I
Okay.
can get the video put together, and then 2 weeks out, we'll open this up for a live Q&A session.
Okay. Is that
Yeah.
6 p.m. Mountain?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
So thanks, Greg.
Oh, you
You
bet.
know, this is it's so important what you're doing. You know, I can't believe that I lived in the Tucson, Phoenix area and didn't know about you. If I had known, I may not have left the area.
Oh, wow.
You
When
know,
did you live here?
oh gosh. Well, let's see. We moved. We were living in Tucson. I was in the area since the early '90s.
Oh, wow.
I lived up in the Cave Creek area.
Oh, wow.
Left for a while. Came
Mhm.
back to Phoenix. You know, around 92, 93, I guess. Then wound up moving down to Tucson there for a couple of years. And my mother and father had retired in Sun City West,
Oh, wow.
so I was frequently down there,
Oh,
you
there you
know,
go.
for decades.
Well, we've just been chugging along here, man. I just keep throwing. Mom taught me a lot. Mom was in sales when she
Mhm.
worked, and she said, "Greg, you got to throw a lot of mud up on the wall before some stick." So,
Yeah,
I spent the last 40 years throwing mud up on the wall about this.
yeah. Well, you've done a tremendous job. You've built a great
Thank you.
foundation, and uh, you know, so we're interested in uh, helping other people to discover what
Hmm.
they can do based upon what you have built.
Perfect.
Yeah. So
I
thanks
love
so
it.
much, Greg.
You bet. Thank you for having me.
And
As you
your
can say, I
URL,
like talking about it.
your URL is urbanfarm.org.
Urbanfarm.org. And
Okay.
for the free classes, we have a landing page set up, iwanttogarden.com.
iwanttogarden.com. Okay. We'll talk again soon.
Love it.
Bye-bye.